Hello and welcome to another week of Behind the Mic. I'm your host, Jonathan Hodgson, excited for another great conversation with a great sportscaster. And tonight, live on ASTV on the website and Facebook, I'm excited to catch up with a rising star in hockey broadcasting and a good friend of mine in the business, Dante De Caria. Earlier this week, Dante was named the new radio play-by-play broadcaster and hockey communications manager for the Regina Pats in the Western Hockey League. We'll talk to Dante about that, about the big news and the move to Saskatchewan, and move that into talking about his new club and the rest of the Western Hockey League. Dante is also a two-sport star behind the mic, as he spent a lot of time in baseball, previously broadcasting for the Lansing Lugnuts when they were the single-A affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays, a former media intern with the big club in Toronto. We'll talk to him about both of those experiences, people he's met along the way, and also pick his brain a little bit about his experience in the front office as director of player procurement with the Barrie Baycats in the Intercounty Baseball League. So we have a fun show lined up for you. We'll get into a lot of stuff with Dante tonight and have some fun along the way. As always, we appreciate your viewership here on ASTV Productions and Behind the Mic. As always, you can find our live broadcasts and our archives of all our shows and game broadcasts on the website, astvproductions.com. We simulcast on Facebook, and you can find further updates on Twitter and Instagram as well. So thanks so much for tuning us in and making us part of your Friday night. And on the other side of this break, we'll kick it off with Dante De Caria. Thanks so much for watching Behind the Mic. And once again, welcome back to Behind the Mic here on ASTV Productions. Jonathan Hodgson along with you, joined now by our guest this week. It's Dante De Caria from the Regina Pats. Dante, welcome, and how does that sound?
It sounds a little bit weird, Jonathan, but as usual, always a pleasure to talk to you. I think this is the first time that we've spoken really face-to-face. You can call this face-to-face nowadays with the pandemic, since I saw you in Duncan. What was it? That was about 2 years ago now, almost 2 years.
Yeah, that was during the 1920 season, game between the Powell River Kings and the Cowichan Capitals in Duncan. You looking dapper as always with the suit and the bow tie. That was good.
Yeah, not today. I don't have the bow tie today, but
I was gonna leave that for later. But yeah, you know, I dressed up and I took a look at my my bright red tie that I have. I was debating whether or not to class it up a little bit for you tonight.
You always look good, buddy.
We got a lot I want to get into with you tonight. As we said in our open, and kind of alluded to, you and I go back. We kind of were united by some mutual friends of ours we have in baseball who will be sure to plug as we go on. But we'll get into hockey and baseball and all that over the course of the next hour. But of course, the news of the day, on Wednesday, it was announced that you are joining the Regina Pats as radio play-by-play broadcaster. Games heard on 620 CKRM, and also their hockey communications broadcaster. Communications manager. So, kind of take us through what your summers look like and kind of how this came to be.
Well, my summer was a little bit unusual because I wasn't really sure when I was going to get back into the business because of COVID. I took a year off after being the voice of the Powell River Kings in the 2019-20 season, as you mentioned earlier in this podcast. I went back home to Ottawa, where I'm born and raised. Honestly, I'm not going to lie. I worked for Uber for the winter. Then I stopped, and then I focused more on baseball. I was in the front office with the Barrie Baycats as the director of player procurement. So my job consisted of really recruiting players, making connections, signing players. Really, it was mostly just recruiting players. Although I did broadcast a few games because I knew that a few jobs were going to be opening. And so I wanted to be, maybe not hot, but have that mentality that I wanted to, because I knew, we'll talk about him a little bit later, but speaking of Jerry Howard, he says stick with your talents all the time, and he always says that my talent is broadcasting, so I needed to get back on the mic to kind of remind myself that I'm a good broadcaster, and things kind of snowballed from there. I interviewed with another team in the WHL and with Regina. And I'll be honest with you, Regina from the get-go was kind of the place that I wanted to be, not just because of their history and having Connor Bedard, potentially a future first overall pick, but just because I like the position. I like hockey communications and I like broadcasting. That's kind of what I've done in baseball, right? When I was working in Lansing under Jesse, I was a communications assistant, media assistant and broadcaster, color commentator, and play-by-play. And then when I was with the Jays, I really learned all about, handling media and stuff like that from Jay Stenhouse and Mal Romanen and Rodney Heemstra and, Eric Grossman and Sue Malabon. Those people there were huge in kind of showing me, how to handle the media and stuff like that and how to run a PR department. So I'm excited to run a PR department or a media relations department with Regina. And so that's what kind of brought me towards this job. I applied for it, phone interview first, then Zoom interview. References were called, and then I got the call 3 weeks ago, this coming Monday. No, 4 weeks, something like that. It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So quick move. I've been in Regina since Saturday, and so far I'm really happy to be here, man.
So what does that transition look like in your life? As you mentioned, you just flew in a few days ago. What's involved in kind of getting your feet on the ground in Regina and kind of making it your home?
Well, Jonathan, I didn't actually fly in. I drove here. Same thing that I did to come out to British Columbia. I drove across the country. So it took me 32 hours to get here. And I want to thank my two friends, Leah Markinson and Gavin Lowry, two close friends. I have to shout them out because they drove with me. So I drove my Honda and they drove behind me with the U-Haul with all my stuff to kind of set up this 2-bedroom apartment that I'm here in. And 32 hours. We left Wednesday night, got in Friday night, so that's pretty good. And and then I moved in Saturday morning. So far, just kind of getting my feet wet, just trying to learn the organization, meet as many people as possible. I had the the pleasure of meeting Dave Struch, our head coach, an assistant general manager today, who's just a fantastic guy. We sat down for roughly 20 minutes today and just talked about the team, talked about our past, got to know each other a little bit. And then next week, I'll be meeting John Paddock, who's been away this week. We've spoke several times on the phone. He's also a great guy. And then it's been a pleasure to work and be around all the great people in this office. I mean, I'd say it's a maybe best office in terms of people, organization, and just how we all have the same mentality to work together as a team that I've worked in. So one of the best offices I've worked in. I think I don't like to compare, but I'll say tied for first with Lansing. I thought Jesse and Tyler Parsons and the rest of the staff there were just fantastic. It kind of reminds me of that. I had so much fun there. So far, I'm just so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be with the Pats for the next couple of years, and I'm getting used to the city. But I've moved. This is my 4th time moving, so it's not something that I haven't seen before for sure. I'm just really excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'll second your thoughts on Jesse Goldberg-Strassler out in Lansing. He's a good friend of this show and a friend of mine. So we always take every chance to shout out Jesse. And I'm not sure how much how much opportunity you would have had before this process to really follow the WHL and specifically the Pats. So once it becomes clear that this is going to be your new home, how much time do you spend doing homework on your new team, whether that's team?
Yeah, so I've been here for a week, and pretty much every day it's learning about the organization, whether it's talking to business ops and marketing and social media and the coaching staff, front office staff. I'm learning about the league, learning about the team. We have analytics guys too, that I've had the opportunity and pleasure of kind of picking their brains, and I was picking Dave Struch's brain today, our head coach. So leading up to the October start, I think I'll be ready. As for the past, it's a gimme that being from Ontario, I mostly followed the OHL, followed the WHL a little bit. I'm familiar with all the teams, all the markets. Most of the players, you've had to probably go on to the NHL for me to have an idea who you are. I know who Kirby Dach is, who played for the Saskatoon Blades. And if you look at our alumni, Sam Steele, the last first round pick coming from the Regina Pats, World Junior gold medal, Jordan Eberle, I knew played for the Regina Pats, and Josh Harding and Chandler Stevenson and Al McInnes and stuff like that. Like I'm already familiar with those names from before. But the cool thing, being a baseball guy, that I always knew before taking this job is that there's 2 players that played for the Regina Pats that went on to play Major League Baseball, and one of them being Dustin Mullikin, who's a friend of mine. He's from Regina, actually lives here with his 2 daughters. And he had a great story, journeyman, and then got to the big leagues with the Detroit Tigers. Jonathan, I'm sure you know him as well, being a Canadian baseball passant. And then there's also Niger Morgan, who played for the Regina Pats, and he was a center fielder in the big leagues with the Brewers, mostly with the Brewers. I believe he bounced around a little bit later in his career, played for Washington and such. But, being a baseball guy, I always knew that Regina had a rich alumni history. But it's really cool that they had 2 players play for the Pats and not go on to play in the NHL, but play in Major League Baseball. That's just so cool. So, I'll be ready for the home opener. I'll be ready for, the first preseason game on radio in late September. But, I'll continue to keep learning and get to know the guys and get to know the staff and get to know more about our history as the season goes on. And, I'm not overwhelmed by it at all. I'm just excited to kind of act as a sponge and learn so much about a franchise that is now going into its 105th season of junior hockey, oldest in the world, established 1917. That is just so cool.
Yeah, it's stepping into the play-by-play seat and the most historic junior program in the country. We'll get to that in a second, but you bring up Dustin Mullikin, and I'll further that. Of course, familiar with the name, being two baseball guys, but he's got ties all over the place. As you mentioned, played a game with the Pats, but he a little more relevant to my world. He played in the Western Canadian Baseball League back in the day up in Saskatoon, and then ended up making an appearance one season for the Detroit Tigers in the big leagues, and now he's into coaching and has been the assistant coach with the Regina Red Sox in the Western Canadian League, and has also been an assistant coach with the Barrie Baseball Academy out in Lethbridge, Alberta. And he's also the nephew of Lauren Mullikin, who is a longtime WHL and NHL coach. Had great success up in Saskatoon with the Blades. So those kind of connections are a lot of fun. I wanted to ask the Connor Bedard question. It seems like for the next 2-3 years, we're not going to be able to talk to anybody from the Pats without asking the Bedard question. But how exciting is that to be able to call games for potentially a future number one pick?
Well, I was asked the same question the other day. I went on radio with Derek Taylor on CKRM, the Sports Cage. That was super exciting. Super fun to talk to DT, and I look forward to working with him this season and going on his show. He asked, what's it like? Honestly, it hasn't sunk in just yet because I haven't seen the kid. I haven't met the kid. Camp starts next week, late next week. I haven't met him, but everything I've heard from the coaching staff is that he's just so mature. He's a great guy. He's a good teammate. And he handles the pressure and the media very well for 16 years old, right? He played his exceptional status last year, first WHL player to get exceptional status. So I'm super excited to be a part of history and to kind of, paint the picture and kind of almost, be a part of history. He's definitely the best hockey player I'll ever broadcast so far. Probably the best athlete will have broadcasted. That includes baseball. And, there's guys that I've called like Kevin Smith, who's played in the big leagues. And I think that Connor Bedard will have more status than Kevin Smith and guys like that. But no, I'm really excited. It's hard for me to speak about it because, like I said, I haven't met the guy and I haven't watched him play, but I know he's a good player. I know he's really good with the puck. I know he's smart. His hockey IQ is really good. And most importantly, he's a good teammate. So that's kind of what I've heard, but I'll meet him next week. And then maybe the next time I come on, if I do come on again, I'll have a little bit more to talk about on that regard for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And just kind of putting a bow on the hockey talk as it pertains to the Pats. I had an opportunity to cover the Saskatoon Blades last season and have another opportunity to keep that going, which is in the works. And so kind of following them as a residual of following the Blades closer. It really seemed like last year for the Pats, it was their third straight year out of a playoff position, or what would have been a playoff position, finishing fifth in the Saskatchewan Hub last season. But it started to take on a different tone. They had 2 really tough years, but last year it started to take on that retooling tone of, let Connor get his first game action out of the way, let him start to dig into the league a little bit. And then in recent weeks, and even recent days, you've seen the Pats make significant moves, signing their import pick, trading for Zach Stringer. It really feels like you're coming into a program that maybe some loose ties, very loose ties to what the Blue Jays are doing, where they might be at the earliest stages of go time in their competitive cycle.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think you have a 2-year window with a talent like Bedard. And even if you look at David with the Erie Otters, they didn't win his first year, and they went to the Memorial Cup his second year, and they didn't win, right? It's really hard to get to the Memorial Cup. It's the hardest trophy to win in hockey, and one of the hardest trophies to win in the world. You have the Q, the O, and the Dub, which are for 3 very, very strong leagues. So, yeah, obviously it's a retooling year. I think this team will make the playoffs this year and will compete. I think they have a lot of good character guys, and they have guys returning from last year, which definitely helps the room and helps the chemistry within the room. And as you just mentioned, Stringer, you trade a first-round pick for him. That's kind of, giving the message to the fan base and to the locker room that we're trying to compete this year, but also trying to win next year in Connor's 17-year-old year. Because that Connor is going to be better next year than he is this year. That's just how things work. It's the same thing with me. Like, I'll tell you, I'll be a better broadcaster next year than I am this year. Right? Guys are always improving. Guys are always better. And as you get older, you get a lot more mature. You know the league a little bit more. And it goes with playing, right? So I think next year is probably the year to win it all. I mean, this team hosted the Memorial Cup in 2018, and they've had a little bit of a retooling since then. But that retooling has paid off. Now, like I said, they'll compete this year. They'll make the playoffs this year, I would think. But next year is the real. Maybe they'll surprise teams this year. It depends on if guys can overperform, etc. I know they have a good goaltender, but next year I think is the year for sure.
It'll be fun to watch for sure. Before we go to our first break, we mentioned a few minutes ago about the history of the Pats, and that certainly includes that play seat that you're sliding into. People in more recent past, like Rod Peterson, like Peter Labardius. A little bit further back, people like John Wells have sat in that seat. I know you've said that it's going to take time for some of it to really sink in and wrap your head around it. But were you fully aware of the lineage of the position you just took over? And I know Roddy is still in the market, still active in the market. Have you had a chance to connect with people? Have you had people reach out?
Yeah, so I had a 45-minute conversation with Phil Andrews, who was the voice of the team on radio for 10 seasons. They call him Phil the Thrill. And when I was on Derek Taylor's show the other day, we had a fan call in and say, "You got big shoes to fill." And everybody I've talked to has said, "You got big shoes to fill." And Phil said on the phone, "No, you have little shoes to fill." No, you know what? Like, I don't feel any added pressure. I know how good the broadcasters are in this market and how good that lineage is, including Phil and Rod Peterson and the other names that you mentioned. But I'm just excited to be a part of history and be excited to kind of carry on that torch, right? Like, I don't feel any added pressure. I'm not nervous. I know I'm good enough. I know that I've earned this opportunity for all the hours and games and extra hard work that I've put in, or whether I was making less to nothing or nothing at all. Because I was trying to prepare myself for this point, and my end goal, it's not my end goal, but my goal was to get here, and I'm here. And so I'm fully confident that I deserve to be here, and I'm here for a reason. This organization believes in me to carry on the torch that Phil has passed over to me. And Phil's been great and being kind of a helping hand to me so far and saying, "You're going to do great. Congratulations. If you need any help, let me know." He's been a great helping hand so far. And like I said, I deserve to be here. I think I'm going to do great. And I'm super excited to be a part of history and carry on that torch that all the previous broadcasters have now passed on to me.
Well, we're excited to follow you along the way. All right, we got to take our first break here on Behind the Mic. After the break, we'll get into some baseball stuff, as that's near and dear to both of our hearts. So on the other side of this break, Dante and I will be back here on Behind the Mic chatting a little baseball. Thanks for making us part of your Friday evening.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance. Quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Back here on Behind the Mic on ASTV Productions. Many thanks for tuning us in wherever you're watching from tonight on the website and across Facebook. Jonathan Hodgson with Dante De Caria from the Regina Pats had a great time in that first block talking about your new gig and getting into the Pats and the WHL a little bit. And in this second block, I just wanted to have a little bit of fun because baseball is the primary thing that brought the two of us together a few years back. And I'll actually start by tying that in with the WHL because there's somebody that at some point you're going to cross paths with, Mr. Bob Ridley from the Medicine Hat Tigers. Of course, the legendary longtime voice of the Tigers had his 4,000th game behind the mic last season. And once upon a time, he called games and drove the bus for the Medicine Hat Blue Jays. So there's a big time baseball person on the circuit you're going to meet sooner or later.
Well, actually, to add to that, I'm excited to meet him, but he might know former Lansing Lugnuts manager Cesar Martin, who was my manager in Lansing back in 2018, and he's now moved his way up through the Blue Jays organizational ladder, and he actually played for Medicine Hat back in the day, believe it or not.
That's amazing. That's amazing, those kind of stories that you seemingly always come across. And of course, somebody with the experience of Bob Ridley, I guess it shouldn't be that surprising.
No, I don't think so at all.
So we mentioned throughout the early part of the show your experience with, of course, we've talked about the Lugnuts a little bit, and we're going to talk about them a little bit more here. But the Blue Jays have been a big part of both of our backgrounds, and back in 2017, I believe it was, you were a media intern with the Blue Jays in Toronto, getting to get some experience with their broadcast crews. Give us the story on kind of how that came to be.
I mean, how I got the job? Oh, man,
Yeah.
I was 19, second year college. Where do I start? My God. So I went into my professor's office and we were kind of trying to brainstorm ideas on what would be a good internship because I did my first year and I was in my third semester coming right out of doing my first season in professional baseball as broadcaster for the Ottawa Champions of the Can-Am League. And so I didn't really want to go back. I wanted to look for something else where I can learn a little bit more. And my teacher turns around and says, "Why don't you try the Toronto Blue Jays?" And I was like, let's be serious. Like, come on. And then he put me in touch with Scott MacArthur, who had came to talk to our class months prior. And Scott put me in touch with Mal Romanin, and I kept emailing with them, the PR department, the baseball media department, over the course of the winter. A job was posted. I applied for the job. I got through the first process of it. Then it just kind of went from there. There was questionnaires that I had to fill out. And then there was an interview that I did. And then after the interview, Mal called me towards the end of spring training in March of 2017 and said, you're hired as an intern in the PR department, or in the baseball media department it was called. And then I went to work alongside Rodney Heemstra, who is still with the department. And he's a phenomenal guy. Lots of respect for him. I'm super happy that he's got a more steady position with the organization now. It seems like they trust him a lot. I know he does a good job. He's professional. He's just a stud, man. He's so smart. Every time I do my media notes for baseball or for hockey, I just think of Rodney. So that's how it kind of came about. As for the experience, it's really hard to put into words or even in this block to talk about what happened. But I learned a lot. When I first got there, I was really inexperienced. It was kind of like a deer in the headlights, very overwhelmed. But me being around big league guys and big league people taught me how to treat people, because people don't understand, the way they treat people is like gold. It's treat people how you want to be treated, and they're always trying to become better people. And that's something that Jay Stenhouse always preached. And that's something that I take with me every day. So like I said, it's hard to put into words what I learned, but it really helped me grow up and helped me, become ready for this career path. So I thank everybody that I worked with there, because they're all kind of a part of my journey, and my journey's not done yet. That's for sure.
Now your Twitter profile page or picture right now, in my book, you don't need to ever change it. You're probably gonna have some new opportunities for some cool ones. But you and Mr. Jerry Howard, just talk about, you and I both know him, but just kind of bring the viewer inside what it was like being able to get some experience with the legendary radio voice of the Blue Jays.
Yeah, so to go back to that first point, I've thought about it. I don't think I'm changing that picture. Like, you just can't, right? Like, he's one of like yourself. He's one of the greatest people in the world, and he'll hate me for saying this, but he's like right under Jesus for me. But he's just such a, oh my God. I mean, I don't even know how to describe everything what it was like to be around him, but he always came in the office, talked to Stu and talked to the guys. And that's how I kind of got to know him, right? I was always in and out of the booths and stuff like that. And then I approached Jerry and I said that I was a broadcaster the year before. Could you listen to my tape? And he said, sure. And he's old school, so I put it on a CD for him. I burned it right onto a black CD, and he took a listen. And this might shock you, but this is why I love Jerry, but he's a very honest guy. He came back the next day. He listened to it that night after the game on the car ride home, and he told me it wasn't good. And he said, "There's a lot for you to work on. You got to start over." And that just kind of lit fire under me, right? That was, I need to get better, and I wasn't. And then so that's when I contacted the Barrie Baycats and I started calling their games. And I did a self-designed mixer stream. I took the train and bus to almost every game. Although Glenn Jackson, a former center fielder for the team and works in ticketing with the Jays, did drive me up a few times. He drove me home, but I mostly had to bus or to take the train to those games, and it was long. It was sometimes 4 hours. So I did those games, and so I did my first game in Kitchener. I came back to Jerry. I gave him my tape. And then Jerry came back to me the next day after he listened to it in the car ride home following a Blue Jays broadcast. And he said, "What was that?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he's just like, "That was completely different." And then things just kind of started spiraling from there, where we just became a lot closer. He's like, to me, he's like a grandfather or something, like a figure for me. And he said, "Your tape that you just did now was so much different than the last one." I said, that I'd been mentally preparing myself all winter because I knew myself that I needed to get better. And I just executed it. And then after every broadcast, Jerry would listen to every single broadcast. I would put it on a CD, every single Baycats game, and I would give it to him, and he would do the same thing. Listen to it on the ride home or listen to it on the way to the ballpark, and then he would write notes. And then sometimes he would come to he actually went out of his way to come to the field early, took me down into the parking area. We went in his car, and we listened to the game in his car, and we both made notes. And then we started to do different things where he would say, okay, I'm going to make notes on this broadcast. You're going to re-listen to so many innings that he chooses, and you're going to make notes, and we'll see if our notes are the same. And turns out our notes were the exact same. We were thinking the exact same on how to improve and how to get better. And so, just things started to really click for me. He started allowing me to shadow. I would sit beside him in the booth, and I would watch how he does things, how he scores the game, how he calls the game, how he describes things. When I wasn't working the games, I would go sit with him right in between him and Joe Siddle. So it was Mike Wilner on the left, Joe Siddle in the middle, and Tong Young behind us, of course, and the engineer, and then Jerry Howarth on the right-hand side where Ben is sitting now, Ben Wagner. And he would I remember one time was two biggest eye-openers for me. He turned around to me and said, he took all of his prep, shoved it aside, and he said, I'm going to call this half inning just like that. No prep, just my scorebook, and just painting the picture, describing it. And he went on to describe the mound, describe the uniforms, and I was like, holy smokes, that's radio play-by-play. And it just kind of clicked for me there. And then the second thing, he turned around after he had made a mistake, and he said to me, see, Dante, because I was always afraid to make – I was, oh, man, I made a mistake. He said, Dante, even I make mistakes. And so now, really, I'm not afraid to make mistakes because even guys in the big leagues, for a guy like Jerry to turn around to me and admit that he makes mistakes was just like, it's okay to make mistakes. And he always said to me, and Jesse said this to me as well, he said, make these mistakes now at the minor league level or at the lower level, learn from them so that you don't do them again, so that when you get to top, you don't make those same mistakes again. And that's always been something that I've drilled into my brain. And I thank Jerry and Jesse for that. And as the years have gone on, Jerry's been a huge mentor for me. In fact, he helped me get this Regina Pats job as a huge reference for me. He's always been a big reference for me. He's always been a big supporter to me. Some people even joke he's your broadcast agent. People joke about that all the time. But he's been a huge help for me. And I really appreciate him taking me under his wing. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gone to Lansing that year because Jesse came down to visit. He came to shadow Jerry or something like that. He came to a game. And I turned the corner and there's Jerry with Jesse, and he says, Jesse, this is Dante. Jesse, Dante's your number 2 broadcaster next year. And I was like, what? And Jesse was like, what? And then he was like, he's coming to Lansing. And that was it. Obviously, Jesse made the decision, but Jerry was very adamant on me going to Lansing and working under Jesse, and he was right. Everything paid off. I'm not here today without Jerry and Jesse and going to Lansing and doing Lugnuts games because I learned how to be a broadcaster with those 2 individuals.
That's amazing. And one of his things on air was always signing on with "Hello, friends. This is Jerry Howarth." And once in a while, I would hear somebody who wasn't familiar with him kind of be like, "Really, you're gonna sign on with "Hello, friends"?" But after having the opportunity to get to know him as a mentor, but more as a friend and just as a person, that was perfect. It was like you were describing, same guy on air as he was off air. And the other day I was in a bookstore with a friend and passed by his Hello Friends book and took it off the shelf and pointed at it and says, yeah, I know that guy. I got one of the advanced copies, just kind of as a humble brag.
Yeah, I actually keep the book with me at all times. It's in my car. I bring it to my broadcasts. There's 2 books that I keep with me at all times. It's Jesse's Baseball Thesaurus, although I won't be using it for hockey. and it's Jerry Howard's Hello Friends. And the reason why I like to have those books is because I want to remember my two big mentors, who are fantastic authors, obviously, but also just to remember everything they taught me. And sometimes I'll even scroll through some of the things in his book, and I forget what chapter or what paragraph, but there's a really cool thing in Jerry's book, if you read, where it was a situation with Brett Cecil, where Jerry said something on the air and whatever. I'm not going to get into that part, but Jerry pointed out, for broadcasters, talk about a player on the air as if they are sitting right beside you. Would you say that to that player, talking to him face to face in the broadcast booth? And it just clicked. And oh man, like I said, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's so smart, right? And like you mentioned, a lot of the stuff in his book is really no ego, right? Like, it's the same person. And Hello Friends, that's the same way that I kind of like to do my broadcast. Obviously, I don't take that catchphrase. I don't sign on like that. I don't really know if I have a catchphrase for my sign on, but it's not about me. And Jerry always taught me that it's not about the broadcaster. It's about the players on the field and the fans. Those are the two most important things. The way I go about it is, I don't matter. Like, people say, oh, you're the big voice that Pats. Like, my job is to make the game easy for the fans to listen, and so that they feel at the rink they're learning about the players. It's exciting. They enjoy listening to the games because they're learning about hockey. They're learning about the players, and they find the game easy listening. And my job is to just to describe it and to distribute that information to the fans. The way I call the games is, I don't really add my personal opinion. It's not a personal opinion when I'm talking about players. I don't go on the air and say, well, he did this, he did that. I'll use all the facts, describe what's happening, so that the fan can make that opinion, whether he made a bad play or he didn't, whether he's not good or he's playing well or he's not playing well, right? Or you reference to a coach. Because me, what do I know? I don't matter. At the end of the day, that's the thing. I don't go into a broadcast saying I'm the star. It's my booth. It's not my booth. It's not my show. It's the fans and the team. Like I just said, my job is just to describe the play and to paint that, and to start with a blank canvas and to paint the picture for the fans.
When I was just starting out at, I believe, 16 years old with the Okotoks Dogs in the Western Canadian League, I described something. I don't even remember what the play was, but I described it basically as the best I had ever seen, or the first I had ever seen. And somebody said, lovingly, they said, "You're 16. Nobody cares what you've seen." And that's where I kind of learned that lesson about, right, it's not about me. It's it's all about the players, all about the coaches. So great words there. Couple more things I want to get to quickly. I know our baseball block has gotten a little bit longer, which is completely fine. I kind of knew it would. But we've talked about your Lugnuts time and your season calling their games with Jesse in 2018, the year after your Blue Jays internship. What was that like, your first time being one of the voices of a team for an entire season? What do you remember about that?
Well, it was the first time that I had been in a pretty decent sized market, right? Those Lugnuts games will have more fans than some of the Pats games, right? Like, I think July 4th, Independence Day, we filled 12 or 13,000. We did the Midwest League All-Star game in 2018, and we also packed the house there. Thirsty Thursdays, obviously a big thing in the U.S. And some of the promotional nights, like the Pablo Sanchez bobblehead backyard baseball night, and when we changed our name to the Lansing Mighty Wombats, we had some good crowds. What was it like? It was fantastic to be around baseball every day, but it was also a really good learning experience because there was a lot of ups and downs in that year. You're broadcasting every single day for 5 months, right? Like, people say, oh, hockey's a grind. No, it's nothing compared to minor league baseball. It is literally night and day. You know, we say, oh, we go on these big 2-week trips to, you know, Portland, and we go through Victoria. I'm like, that's nice. But once you step on a bus at minor league baseball, it does not compare to hockey. Hockey, you have off days. You practice. You know, you might play a 3-3, but then you got 3 days off. In baseball, there's no days off. You get like 3 off days a month. So just kind of learning how to work in the grind, how to be a part of that schedule was definitely something that I liked. But also working with Jesse, another guy who has no ego, and he's not selfish at all. He would split his per diem with me. He would allow me to room with him on the road, and he would share a bus seat with me. Every person had their own seat except for Jesse and I. And there was some long trips. Going to Iowa, we talked about 12 hours, and Jesse and I sat with each other on the bus, and we just created a bond, and we're friends for life. You know, I'm not saying that we didn't get tired of each other sometimes, because that happens. It just happens with people, right? Even when you have a roommate. But we always stayed friends. We always set apart, you know, anytime we had some confrontations and stuff like that, because we just got along. And then, you know, as for my broadcasting, Jesse helped me a lot with, you know, just becoming a better person. He taught me about feel, interviewing skills, calling games, little things. You know, I can give a quick example. I know we're running short, but a quick example was when reintroducing your guest in an interview, right? Do it when you change subjects. So say we're talking about the team's record. Now, Jesse and I have the same style of interviews where we like to talk about their past and their careers and their lives and how they got here. So say we're talking about, you know, growing up in Venezuela. Now we want to talk about the team. That's when you joined with Maximo Castillo, starting pitcher for your Lansing Lugnuts. Then we go last 10 games, 8-2, whatever you want to talk about. That's when you change subject. That's when you reintroduce someone. So just little things like that. Because I would always go, well, I don't know when to. No, because you want that kind of signifies to the listener and to the player that, okay, we're moving on to something else. Right. So those are just some of the little things that I learned from it. And there's so much more. I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's so much that comes to mind. We don't have enough time really to talk about everything with Jesse because, in my opinion, he's an MLB broadcaster. And I really hope he gets there someday. And I know he's got his first child. You know, Christy's a fantastic wife, great person. His family's awesome. You know, I believe I met his parents. They were at most of the games. But Jesse and his family, his wife, treated me like gold. And I'm forever thankful.
It's yeah, no kidding. You and I could go all night with the baseball stuff. We got to take one more break here on Behind the Mic. We'll be back with one more little bit quicker segment to wrap up the show with Dante De Caria from the Regina Pats here on Behind the Mic on ASTV. And back here on Behind the Mic on ASTV Productions, in conversation this week with Dante De Caria, the new play-by-play voice on radio and communications manager for the Regina Pats in the Western Hockey League. It's been a great 45 minutes or so talking about the new job, talking hockey and baseball in that last block. And Dante, we got a few minutes left here. We don't have a hard time slot we have to hit, but we like to wrap it up in about an hour or so. One thing I didn't get to in that last block that I wanted to bring up quickly, because I think it's an interesting interesting part of your experience was your last year or so, as you referenced, was spent in baseball operations with the Barrie Baycats in the Intercounty Baseball League. What was that experience like, becoming essentially part of the front office in the IBL?
It was very exciting. It was a lot of fun. And it's something that I always thought I could do. I mean, growing up, other than being a broadcaster, I thought I could work in a front office because I was always playing like sim leagues. I was playing like NHL sim leagues, be a GM mode. You know, I play Franchise Hockey Manager on the computer, which is a simulation GM style PC game. And then also Out of the Park Baseball, which is another baseball sim franchise league or game on PC. So I'm always playing those. And actually, I even played in some online leagues as well, where every team had a GM. And so that was fun. But no, it's just exciting because I know that I have a good knowledge in baseball. I know talent when I see it. And I had a lot of connections. Like, guys were always asking me, "Oh, I'm looking for a place to play after they got released," and stuff like that. I just had a lot of connections. Like, in the IBL, you're only allowed 4 imports, right? And I always try to get Latin guys from Dominican and Venezuela and such. I have too many guys, right? Like, that's how many people I know. That's how many people are contacting me. And so it was never a hard time finding players. For example, I mean, we had 2 ex-MLB pitchers that, because of COVID, because of the borders, weren't able to come, but they were signed with us. And, you know, a former Blue Jays organizational catcher who I knew very well from Lansing and Andres Sotillo. And then, you know, just scouting college ball, the Western Collegiate Baseball League, as you know, a big league that we recruited some players out of. You know, I'm not doing it anymore right now because this job is pretty important. I have to put my focus into that. But, you know, Barrie's, you know, they're scuffling. They're doing okay. But a lot of my guys are there and they're doing well. And I wish them nothing but the best. But it's something I could probably, you know, see myself doing in the future just because as maybe an advisor or side role. But as of right now, I'm not doing it anymore. But maybe by next summer, I'll try to help out while I'm working just here in the office with the Pats. But as far as the winter goes, I'll just be Regina. But no, good experience. Not going to sit here and say it was difficult. Everything kind of came kind of easy because I've been around some good managers and some good front office people. So I know what it takes to run a baseball team.
Absolutely, and it's great to get experience in whatever role you can in sports and stay active. And I thought that opportunity to get into baseball operations was a unique one for most broadcasters. All right, we've talked a lot about both your big sports here tonight, and we brought up your headline jobs, but you've also done play-by-play for the Junior A Ottawa Junior Sens. You've been with the Ottawa Champions in Independent League Baseball, and kind of tie a bow on the experience that you've had in both sports. And for example, when I got to know you, I got to know you because of Jerry. And so to me, you were a baseball guy. And then I realized and I saw the hockey side of your career growing out. And then on Wednesday, I turned my phone on and you're the voice of the Pats. And it was still a little bit of, holy smokes, like this legit baseball guy had just landed a prestigious hockey job. And kind of try to put your experience as a multi-sport broadcaster, how important is that for other broadcasters coming up to be proficient and try to excel at multiple sports?
You got to do it all. I mean, if you look at all the broadcasters at the highest level, for example, someone that also helped me, although I won't talk too much about him, but he was a big help for me, is Gary Thorne. Really good baseball broadcaster, really good hockey broadcaster, but also just a great play-by-play broadcaster in general. He could do every sports. I could count more than 5 on my hand, including bowling. We've all seen that call, right? We've all seen that bowling call, right?
Yeah.
Man, so yeah, just every broadcaster should aspire to do multiple sports. And I think what holds a lot of Canadian broadcasters, not so much the American ones. The American ones do everything. They're the pros. The Canadian ones need to do multiple sports. And I think that's what lacks here in Canada. The reason why I did multiple sports is because I was always paying attention to them across the border. If you look at Jesse Goldberg-Strasser, he's done football, he's done basketball, he's done hockey, or not hockey, sorry, he's done baseball, football, basketball, and even at the NHL level, Dan Schulman, another friend of mine, another mentor. He's done every sport, including hockey. Not too much hockey, but very good football broadcaster, very, very good basketball broadcaster, and a Hall of Fame baseball broadcaster. So you have to be able to do multiple sports if you want to get to the top level. Also, if you want to just become better as a broadcaster. Like I know you keep saying I'm a baseball guy, but my hockey broadcasting is also very good as well. Which is better? We'll wait and see. I've broadcasted at a pretty high baseball level, and I've also broadcasted now at a pretty good hockey level. So, I'm hoping that, maybe later in my career when potentially I get to the top that I'll be able to do both sports, maybe at a national level, and I think that would help. We'll see what happens. But I think that doing hockey and baseball and broadcasting 12 months of the year got me to this point at such a young age. I don't know how many broadcasts I've done, but I'm guessing I'm over 600 just by broadcasting 12 months a year. You're talking about 100-game baseball season. You count hockey. Even when I was in the CCHL, it wasn't just the Ottawa Senators that I was doing, because I was used to that baseball schedule. I was doing 5 games a week, so I was doing 3 junior A teams before I went to Powell River. So you add up all those games. Every year I was doing about 120 broadcasts a winter if you count playoffs, and then moving into baseball. Lansing, I did 142. So it just made me a better broadcaster because I wasn't off the mic. I was always working on things. I was always getting better. While other people were taking summers off, I was doing another sport. So, and both sports helped each other. I was talking about it on the cage the other day with Derek Taylor on CKRM. And I was saying that my baseball broadcasting helped my hockey broadcasting because of the pace that you have and how you have to describe so much more. And so I said, hey, I can describe so much more in hockey, but I could also kind of let the game breathe like you do in baseball. And I mean, man, there's so much from baseball that I learned for hockey and vice versa, for hockey going into baseball, but mostly baseball going into hockey, because, your pace is so important. Less is more, something Jerry always preached, less is more. And that's something that I try to do with hockey. Something I learned with Jesse and Lansing is you always say the player first, then the action. And you try to, kind of spread things out as things happen. So, here's the pitch on the ground left side, backhanded at short. Like, it's just being so precise on things and being that boom, boom, boom kind of helped with hockey so that I could always kind of describe, okay, this guy has the puck, and then kind of let it breathe rather than trying to describe every single little thing that he's doing with the puck. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you have to, and Gary Thorne always told me, be on every touch of the puck. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I can go on forever about how baseball helped towards hockey, but it's kind of self-explanatory how if you broadcast 12 months of the year, you're going to be a better broadcaster, and that's kind of what my mentality was.
Absolutely, and that's a great outlook to have. And man, I could go on forever with you, just having conversations about just having shop talk conversations and talking hockey and baseball. But I really appreciate you giving us an hour of your time on a Friday night. I know it's been a hectic past week or so. As you get your feet on the ground in Regina, but a really exciting time for you, and I'm really happy for you, and we'll be following you Before we let you go, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want to connect with you, and where are the Pats games going to be found?
So the games can be found on 620 CKRM. I think we're doing a few games also at home on WHL Live, which is a paid subscription, but you can watch some of those games with me on the call. And I believe some of the games will be on local television, although it won't be me, but you can still find the games there if you're here locally in Regina. As for on social media, Diamond Dante is where you can find me. I'm not too big on social media. I don't go on too often. But if you want to reach out, send me a DM on Twitter. My DMs are open. If anyone wants demos, wants to send me stuff, I'm always happy to help and happy to be a mentor to anyone else and kind of, pay it forward like my mentors did to me, and my mentors are still helping me. So I'm going to continue to pay forward the knowledge that they've kind of passed down to me to other young broadcasters. And my email address is ddecaria@reginapats.com.
Sounds great. Dante, again, thanks for doing this. Great to catch up with you on the show this way, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you along the WHL trail at some point here soon. So we're going to wrap it up here for another week on Behind the Mic. Thanks for making us part of your Friday evening or wherever you've been watching from. You can find the archive of this show on the website, astvproductions.com. We'll be back same time, same place with a new sportscaster next week, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern here on the website and on Facebook. And you can follow our updates over on Twitter and Instagram throughout the week as well. So for myself, Jonathan Hodgson, for my guest, Dante De Caria from the Regina Pats, thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you again next week.